Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Montreal. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Chion. We've got Shaun McLaren not playing Temur Marvel, though. It does say that on the screen, though. That is incorrect. He is on Black-Green Energy. His opponent on the other side of the table, Joshua Mulloy, is on Blue-Red, which is a control deck.
Yeah.
What do you make of the matchup here, Paul?
So if
the roles are pretty clear here, right?
Right. So if Shaun was actually on the energy, it looks like he's on the delirium version of black green, which I think is a better matchup for the blue red deck because it doesn't play the Glint Sleep Siphoner, and Siphoner is a very, very big game in this matchup. Also, the energy deck gets to play cards like Greenbelt Rampager, which is a really difficult threat to remove in the blue-red deck because your removal spells are Magma Sprays, Harness Lightning, which only deals 3 damage early, and Long Tusk Cub too. Sometimes that can also be problematic. So the creatures are a little bit bigger. I think in game ones, Shaun McLaren won the die roll, which was huge. I would probably I would rather be on the blue-red side again because the black-green deck is going to be playing some number of Fatal Pushes and Grasp of Darknesses in the main deck.
Ooh, little hint there from Josh Molloy, and an interesting decision as well. So Shaun went right for the Nissa Voice of Zendikar there with the Whining Constrictor out.
Wow.
And Josh goes, I'm going to censor, I'll negate that instead. But he actually showed him the sensor. Like, Shaun knows he has the sensor. Yeah, he put it on the table. Yeah. Now, you can see Josh's plan here, though. He had the sweeper there to take out the Whining Constrictor before it got out of hand.
Yeah, and I see a Liliana in Shaun's hand, and I would be pretty tempted to just run out of Planeswalker, as Blue-Red really doesn't have that many answers to a resolved Planeswalker.
Ooh, this is a good one, too. Yeah. Liliana, though, it looks like he's just going to get back his Whining Constrictor, or maybe something else. In this case, it was a Whining Constrictor.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can't really realistically look to kind of tick up the Liliana and go for the emblem, because the blue control decks typically play 4 copies of Disallow. So Shaun just opting to get value out of that card right away, because it is possible that Josh does have 1 or 2 copies of Commit to Memory, and if he does, he wants to make sure he at least gets a little bit of value out of that Liliana. Yeah, there's also Wandering Fumarole on the board, but Josh is 1 land away from activating it.
Yep. All right, so Liliana, the last hope. She's going to tick upwards. No target needed. And here's a Whining Constrictor. Land. And Whining Constrictor, again, Josh is probably, that was a Grimflayer, the second one. Josh is going to have to just cycle Censor here, because he's not going to get Shaun with it after having exposed it.
Yeah, and I think Shaun has Delirium here, creature, instant, land, sorcery. So that Magma Spray is actually not going to be doing a whole lot here. And yeah, Shaun's amassed a pretty impressive board here. It's going to be hard for Josh to come back from this.
Yeah, he cycled 2 copies of Censor actually there.
Yeah, I was actually a little bit surprised that Josh just went for the Sweltering Suns right away on turn 3, leaving him very vulnerable. I think it might have been better just to, take the hit from the Constrictor and just represent counter magic, because Shaun, he's well aware of what he's playing against. Even if you don't have the counter, Shaun, might play around some counters and buy that would have bought Josh some extra time, and instead, he kind of opened the window for Shaun to just run out of Liliana there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, from Josh's perspective, he's looking at a Whining Constrictor. He probably figures, this is my 1 window to kill it. If I don't now, it's going to be out of range.
Right, but there's only a few ways to actually pump the Whining Constrictor, especially turn 4.
Yeah.
You're not in Verdur's Gearhulk range at that point. There's Nissa and there's Rishkar.
Yeah.
Those are kind of like the 2 cards that Josh could have. And I guess Josh was afraid of Shaun just untapping and playing a Rishkar, and given the complexion of his hand, maybe he wouldn't have been able to deal with that.
Sure.
But
it did open a very wide door for Liliana to walk through, and now she's in the building.
Right, and Shaun has 4 copies of Nissa and 2 copies of Liliana in the main deck, 6 Planeswalkers.
This is kind of interesting. Never to return.
Yeah.
Targeting and negate. You might think, well, whatever, but we are talking about a deck that is looking to use Torrential Gearhulk here, so that will no longer be an option.
Yeah, and nice little synergy there with Grimflayer, and also potentially Liliana. The last hope is, you just look at the top 3 cards of your library, and then you can just put Never to Return into your graveyard and still get a little bit of value out of that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Glimmer of Genius on end step here for Josh Molloy.
Yeah, he's going to need a lot of answers.
Taking a beating, yeah.
He might need like another Sweltering Suns. He does have a Magma Spray to finish off the Grim Flare.
He just drew a Torrential Gearhulk off the top of his library as well.
Okay.
This could be business.
That definitely gets him back in it. Shaun McLaren actually, his removal suite is 3 Fatal Push and 2 Never to Return. So he doesn't actually have, unless, and it looks like he cycled or there's a Dissenter's Deliverance in the graveyard. If Shaun doesn't have a Deliverance, Josh can just run out a Gearhulk here to just eat a Grim Flare and also cast a Glimmer of Genius.
Yeah, he has a Never to Return in hand as Shaun McLaren, but of course sorcery speed.
Right. This does put Shaun in kind of an awkward spot. It's like this is the point where Josh has 6 mana. And Josh is behind enough where I think he just has to play the Torrential Gearhulk. You can't just afford to take a hit here.
He's got a pair of Magma Sprays in his hand as well.
Yeah, he could use both to maybe fire both off on the Grim Flare.
Oh, he's going to go for a Wandering Fumarole and then 2 Magma Sprays after that, but that is going to be fully punished here.
Yeah.
By final Fatal Push. This is a very risky line from Josh Molloy, and he is going to get a chance to use up the 2 Magma Sprays to take out the Grim Flare.
Yeah, but he's just falling further and further behind here.
Yeah, he's going to hit his land drop and still be able to play the Hulk. He can block the Whining Constrictor, take out the zombie. Might work out. It's just his life total starting to dwindle pretty quickly.
Yeah. Shaun can opt to minus the Liliana again, get something back. He could just get back a Ballista here. There is a Whining Constrictor on the board, right? And Josh is down to 8 life here. Ooh, but a Tireless Tracker doesn't look like he has a Landa.
But it's a Tireless Tracker.
How do you turn down the value?
Get the value. No. Looks like he's going to go for the Walking Ballista, which you can see why. I mean, Josh is already down to 8. He's going to get a 2/2 here.
Yeah.
Excuse me, a 3/3 thanks to the Constrictor. And
yeah, there is a lot of pressure. Josh really...
It's a lot of heat.
I don't know if he's playing 2 copies of Sweltering Suns, but he really needs to find another one.
Yeah, he certainly did. Now, instead, he found himself a Harness Lightning. Paul, how does that change things for him?
Well, kind of given his hand, I think his best bet is still just kind of going for the Gearhulk, because I don't know what the last card in his hand is. It's Harness Lightning, Gearhulk, and something. Is that it's just a land.
Yeah, he's just kind of dead though, right? Like if he goes for Gearhulk, blocks Ballista, he takes 4. Shaun just activates Ballista and just...
Yeah, so that would be 5 damage and then 7. Like Josh would take a total of 7 damage?
Yes.
Is that how that works? So let's say...
You're saying if he flashes back the Magma Spray to kill like the zombie?
Yeah, so he puts...
Which is what he did.
Then he'll block the Walking Ballista. Shaun can then pump it up. Oh, yeah, this is lethal, though.
Yep.
So Shaun is going to pump it up here, deal 5 damage to Josh, 2 from the Constrictor, and then deal an additional 2 with the other Ballista in his hand.
And he's just going to show it to him here.
Yeah.
So that was lethal. Josh tried to maneuver his way around it, but he had some things go kind of awry for him there.
Right.
And was already just a bit too far behind. You know, he got a lot of cast a lot of spells that game. He got to resolve his big play with the Torrential Gearhulk, but he fell up just a little bit short. Shaun McLaren. Game 1 goes to him. We'll be back with more Magic right after these messages. And welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Montreal. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Paul Shaun, and we've got game 2 coming up between Shaun McLaren and Josh Molloy. While we wait for them to finish shuffling, though, let's take a look at Reid Duke versus Branden Nadeau.
Even Reid Duke on the Marvel deck.
Jeez.
And opting to go for Temur Marvel. I know his team opted to play the Sultai Marvel deck at the last Pro Tour.
Mm-hmm. But it does seem like this one is more favorable at this point, doesn't it?
He's got Ulamog advantage. That's big.
That's a good advantage to have. You got to figure like he's probably attack away. I mean, it's tapped as well, so.
Yeah, and Branden had a ton of energy, but looks like he couldn't really find a Marvel here. So it looks like this one's going to be over very soon. I mean, maybe he can survive another trigger from the Ulamog and maybe draw a Marvel and still be able to play his own Ulamog. Maybe he still has that as an out. Okay, it looks like Reid found the Ulamog first and got there. But yeah, that is one thing
I've heard that story before, Paul.
Yeah, that is the one issue with kind of the mirror, especially game 1. Not a lot of interaction, not a lot of counter magic. It's really honestly a race to Ulamog. And as we saw in kind of a couple of rounds ago, the mirror match after sideboard is far more interesting.
Area Magic player finds Ulamog first, wins game.
Right. But again, it looks like Reid's also main decking those sensors, so he's playing kind of the slower version, which sets him up better for the mirror. But he also somehow found room for Sweltering Suns as well, so kind of interested to see kind of what cuts he had to make for that. So taking a look at Shaun's list, 4 copies of main deck Dissenters.
I like it. I think that's cool.
He's just like, I know my deck isn't great against Marvel, but I want to play this deck still, and I'm going to just main deck 4 copies of this and just hope they whiff on the first spin.
Yeah.
And mathematically, they are less likely to hit than.
Yeah, they're not a favorite to hit.
They're not a favorite.
But also, like, they don't expect you to have that many copies of a card like that, so they may just be like Marvel.
Yeah, and we saw we saw in a previous match where it's when you play against a black-green deck, you're kind of more concerned about hand disruption. So often people will run out the Marvel even without 6 energy to play around Transgress the Mind. And then Shaun just plays 4 copies of Dissenter's Deliverance.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the hope.
I like that.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think that the real crux of it is that he's able to apply significant pressure, right? Where it's not like I've seen many games where a player got 1 Marvel spin and didn't win.
Yeah. Not only that, I mean,
I've seen him get 5 and not win.
Right. And it's a cheap cycler. The black-green deck generally doesn't have a lot of instants, so it's an instant that cycles, which helps you get Delirium.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, we see Dispossess there right on the top there for Shaun McLaren.
Yeah, Dispossess to get rid of the Torrential Gearhulks. Oftentimes, the blue-red deck has some additional win conditions in the sideboard, like Josh Molloy could have a couple of Glory Bringers, maybe a Chandra. And blue-red also has access to Dragon Master Outcast, but I don't think Josh would bring it in this matchup because he saw Liliana the Last Hope.
I see.
Yeah, and Walking Ballista, so.
Oh, the card's so sweet.
Yes.
I love Dragon. That is just such a cool card.
Yeah, it's been great. It is one of the best cards the blue-red deck can have in the sideboard against the Temur Marvel decks.
It's the kind of card, too, that just has such a neat design because, like, you would almost never think of a 1-drop that you really wanted late in the game. You're like, well, that's not what 1-drops are for.
Dragon Master Outcast is a 6-drop, let's be real here.
Right.
It doesn't do anything until you get it. But the cool thing about it is the fact because it costs 1 mana, you can also protect it with your counter.
See, that's what I was thinking, is that like it's such a cool design space to be able to explore, using a very cheap mana cost on a card that's pretty garbage in the early game but quite good in the late game, and when that would be good. And like you said, when it's good is in a control deck.
So if you notice here, Josh Molloy actually has an Essence Scatter in hand, but he's opting to use his Harness Lightnings on the creature instead. You often want to use Essence Scatter on creatures that give you value when it enters the battlefield. So Shaun McLaren could easily have something like a Gonti that he's boarded in. Also, cards like Tireless Tracker, right? You know, it feels bad Harness Lightning a Tireless Tracker after they play a land, but if you Essence Scatter it, they can't get that value.
Yeah. Oh, here's Dispossessed though for Shaun, and
no.
Negative says Josh Mulloy. He's going to disallow that immediately.
So this is playing out pretty smoothly for Josh, but he does need to find some draw twos here to get ahead. Shaun just running it out. Oh, and I think it resolved.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
That was pretty sweet by Shaun. He could have taken any number of more conservative plays by playing a Whining Constrictor. Doesn't get censored that way, but no, he just windmill slams Ob Nixilis.
Yeah, and Josh could have also opted not to counter the Dispossess, but he must have not brought in many other ways to win. Because if you did bring in, for example, a lot of blue-red decks have 2 to 3 Glory Bringers in the sideboard. If you brought those in and you don't have a Gearhulk in hand, I might have even just considered keeping the Disallow. But this could also just signal that, yeah, I just have those 4 Gearhulks. I can't let this Dispossess resolve.
This does not signal anything good for Josh Mulloy at this point. He's now facing down an active and powerful Planeswalker that will dominate this game if left unchecked. There's a Essence Scatter. Like you said, a lot of 1-for-1s here, but Ob Nixilis.
Yeah, and we saw this in a previous match with the blue-red deck. It's your opening hands look totally great. You have cheap interaction, but you do need to find a way to get ahead on cards. Or you know, a lot of these other decks, especially after sideboard with no dead cards, all they're going to be doing is jamming a threat every single turn and hope one of them sticks. Okay.
So Shaun passed a turn back, and wow, Wandering Fumarole is actually going to get into Ob Nixilis for the full 4 there.
Yeah, so I mean,
interesting.
That does threaten a way to get the Ob Nixilis off the board next turn if Shaun doesn't have a threat to play here. He could also keep mana open for Hissing Quagmire.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
That'll work.
Yeah, and does Shaun have Delirium? No, it doesn't look like Shaun has Delirium yet.
But Nissa can make a plant token, which is a fine blocker.
Right. And also, if Nissa gets countered, I believe that gives him Delirium, which means then he can traverse for a creature.
Ah, yes. As it stands, he's happy to just keep Traverse in his hand until he finds Delirium, because it's so much more powerful to go get whatever he wants. And Shaun does have a couple of 1-ofs in the deck as well that he can go get. He's got a Kalitas in the deck and a Verdurous Gearhulk.
Yeah, I would guess that Kalitas likely gets boarded out, but he could he probably still has a Gearhulk. He has 1 Gonti in his sideboard. Yeah.
Okay, go search up that bad boy.
Yeah, but Josh couldn't attack the dirt. Shaun also had mana to activate the Hissing Quagmire.
Yeah.
So now Shaun is just kind of taking over the game with the Planeswalkers.
That's how it goes.
Blue-red, just not a lot of answers to resolve Planeswalkers. Ooh. You don't even need to search for the Gonti. Just
draw him?
Yeah.
Well, he's going to get countered here. Sad Gonti.
Yeah. But at this point, Shaun can just opt to use Ob Nixilis' secondary ability to just get rid of the Gearhulk here. I don't think he drew a card this turn with it.
Yeah, I like that.
Also, he has another Ob Nixilis in his hand. You know, just play Protect the Planeswalker, take over the game with the card advantage that you get from the Ob Nixilis. And at some point, you can also threaten the Nissa Ultimate, although again, Shaun has to be aware of the fact that it could get disallowed.
Yeah.
But so much value. Look at this. He can draw 8 cards. That's so many.
Get the shivers just thinking about it.
Yeah, Josh needs a big-time effect here. Something like a pull from Tomorrow would be ideal, but it looks like he's just sitting on an Essence Scatter.
Kind of mad at Josh for countering that Gonti. I'm just a Gonti fan, you know.
And I wonder how long he's had that other Essence Scatter. I wonder if he had it when Shaun was running out his Planeswalkers.
Yeah, could have been.
And again,
I remember all that mana up, and Shaun was like Planeswalker.
Right, and again, this is kind of some of the weakness that the blue-red deck has. You have a lot of these conditional counters.
And Josh is officially out of gas and way behind.
Yeah.
Like you said, 2 different Planeswalkers being activated. This is, you know, the 4th turn or whatever that Shaun's had access to Ob Nixilis, who's killed a creature, drawn 3 extra cards. It is just going to be very difficult to come back here. for Josh. Now, he does have a lot of big card draw spells in his deck, I'm assuming. Still the draw twos, maybe pull from tomorrow, something like that. But
yeah, he does have two pull from tomorrows in the main with 4 glimmers. And this could also be a reason why Pete Viren, who went 8-2 with Blue-Red at the Pro Tour, opted to play. He was playing 4 copies of Illumination, 4 copies of Glimmer, and only 24 lands.
Wow.
And when I kind of asked, somebody on our team asked him, like, why do you have so few lands? He's like, I hate getting flooded. You need to have your draw twos. And, you know, worst case scenario, you just play those Illumination. You can just cycle them to try to hit lands.
It is a very nice safety valve.
And yeah, this game is getting out of hand.
Yeah. Is there any realistic comeback method here for Josh? Because the way I look at it is like, let's just say we gave him the ability to just kill all the creatures. Well, he's still just way behind.
Yeah.
Let's say we said, okay, you get to kill both Planeswalkers with 1 card. But he's facing 2 Tireless Trackers.
He would need like a planar cleansing or something along those lines, which is not legal.
Normally, we talk about you know, needing a Wrath of God. Is there a card called Act of God? Because he might need that to get out of this mess.
Right. Yeah. This is just way. Shaun is just up way too many cards right now.
Yeah, the key turn of this game absolutely was turn 5.
Yeah.
When Shaun was like, Obnixilis question mark? And Josh was like, resolve sad face, and then the game just spiraled out of control.
And at this point, with Shaun having so many plant tokens, he can't just opt to go Nissa minus and just pump his entire team. If he does that,
I would opt to do that.
Right,
and
if you do that, the Tireless Trackers will now have more than 3 toughness. So Sweltering Suns isn't even an out to get rid of all the creatures. Also, something Shaun could be thinking about is a potential Chandra Flamecaller, getting it to maybe 5 toughness. Okay. That was an okay draw, but Shaun is just so far ahead it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, Shaun just kind of shrugs.
It's like, all right, whatever. I got another one still.
Tracker down. Ooh, he drew Evolving Wilds. Didn't play it.
Okay, looks like he just wants things to do with his mana.
Shaun.
Oh!
Is he his Ultimate Liliana?
He did Ultimate Liliana. That is 11 cards.
Oh, I was just going to chide Shaun for not going for value. But
come on, we got to see
Josh,
the
come on, man.
Oh, there we go. Look.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Shaun. Thank you.
We got at least a little glimpse there. But yes, Josh Molloy had seen enough. Shaun McLaren 8-0 on day 1 here in Montreal. He is Canadian. He's not from Montreal, but we'll call it home turf close enough.
Right.
And, oh, boy, what a good start for Shaun.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm so jealous of him right now. He's got to just work those Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
He was ahead on every metric.
Absolutely. Again, I mean,
Cards,
overloading
life,
on
board
Planeswalkers
state.
is a good way to kind of defeat Blue-Red.
Oh, yeah. You know, he sort of slips away from you when you're in the Blue-Red seat, and they have too many of those.
Got a bit of a closer game
What
here.
do we got here between Reid and Branden Nadeau? We've got Reid up a game, and he's got a Torrential Gearhulk facing down a Rogue Refiner and a Thopter.
Yeah, so
gotta like Reid's spot there.
Yeah, when we just tuned in, Branden was the one that had the Gearhulk in play, but it looks like Reid cast the Gearhulk and exiled the Dissenter's Deliverance to kind of get rid of the Gearhulk, but both players have a few cards in hand, so it can really swing either way. I mean, Reid's at 9, but I don't even think that's that relevant in this spot. Branden only just has a 1/1 flyer on the board. So what is Branden working with here? Oh, not a lot, actually.
What has he got?
He's got a Whirler Virtuoso, a Servant of the Conduit, and a Negate and a land. He does have 5 energy, so he might just be on the Thopter plan here because Reid is down to 9.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Try to race that Gearhulk.
Right. So, yeah. Attacking here... Yeah, so attacking here puts Reid down to 8. He can play the Whirler Virtuoso, make 2 Thopters, that puts him to 5. He could also consider playing a Servant of the Conduit to make an additional Thopter, but I think he's probably just going to leave up the Negate here instead. Or is he?
Dun, dun, dun.
So the upside of playing the Servant of the Conduit is, let's see, he can make 3 Thopters, right? And if he makes 3 Thopters, that's 4 in the air, which means that's a 2-turn clock because Reid is at 8. attack with 4 Thopters, attack with 4 Thopters.
I think I would try that.
Yeah, but at the same time, Reid, I don't know how, Reid has 5 energy. I mean, Reid could just drop like a Marvel or something, or even potentially like a Chandra. And you want to make sure you have counter magic for that, because a Chandra would just obliterate Branden's board. Ooh.
Ooh, Aetherworks Marvel for Duke.
This is going to get negated as Duke, as Reid has a clue on the battlefield. So if the Marvel resolves, you can crack the clue for the 6 energy and attempt to spin.
Well, nice backup plan here for Reid, though. He's got a Tireless Tracker followed up by a land and hence a clue.
All right, Branden getting aggro.
Did he make some Thopters?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So Duke's at 8.
This draw step's going to be pretty big. What did he find? Looks like it was just a land. So one thing that Branden could do, given that Branden's at 20 here, Branden can just choose to be really aggressive and put Reid on a 2-turn clock. Activate the Lumbering Falls, attack with everything, right?
Oh, I'm liking the sound of this.
Attack with everything. Reid can eat one of the creatures.
Yeah, the Virtuoso or something.
Right, but then it forces Reid to chump block with the Tireless Tracker. Right? Let's see, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, Reid has to chump block with the Tireless Tracker. So I just kind of like attacking with everything. Branden doesn't really have anything else in his hand.
Oh, I like this attack from Branden a lot, and he does it. Look at this. So Reid can eat Lumbering Falls.
He might just want to eat 2 of the 3 power creatures here. So this puts him to 3. This way, if Reid draws something like a Harness Lightning, it still buys him 1 extra turn, because he's going to go down to 3 here, and he can maybe fire off a Harness Lightning on a Thopter.
Oh, I see. Does he have any actual way to get out of this, though? He needs a sweeper?
No, I mean, he can find an Ulamog.
Okay. And exile some Thopters?
Yeah, so I mean,
it's still close.
If he top decks a Marvel, cracks a clue for the 6 energy, finds Ulamog, he can get 2 flyers off the board, and Branden can play a Servant of the Conduit here, but that only gives him 1 additional Thopter, so that's 4 in the air, which would go down to 2 in the air because of the Ulamog if that resolves. But Reid still has to top deck something.
And then he would also die the next turn in that scenario anyway without any help. So
Right.
This is a tough spot here for Reid Duke. He's up a game, so if he doesn't get out of it, we'll see a game 3, but still.
Yeah, I don't know if he kept like Sweltering Suns or if he has something like a Chandra here. That would be big. And he's got an Ulamog in hand, but...
Yeah, Sweltering Sun seems like it would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Both of these players
like
are 6 and 1.
This looks like a Rogue Refiner or something. That's 3 mana here. Yeah, okay. All right. Needs to find... Nope. I don't think any of those cards do it. Now he's on 1 mana.
All right, well, Desperation Mode engage.
Yeah.
And that will, in fact, do it. So game 2 goes to Branden Nadeau.
Oh, another out would just be if Reid drew his own Whirler Virtuoso.
Sure.
Right.
Did he have a bunch of energy? Oh, he's 7 there?
He was. Well, he had 7 energy after the Refiner.
Okay. Still, he could get two Thopters to trade.
Right. If he went from 5 to 8, he could make 2 Thopters. But then, like, Marvel isn't an out, and he might still die to those 2 Thopters on the battlefield. So the backup plan. Sometimes Marvels don't resolve, but Whirler Virtuoso is an excellent energy sink. Yeah.
Chat's getting a little weird.
So it looks like, Branden opted to board. I don't know how many Chandras he had. He probably had looks like he had a couple, but he's boarding it out. Interesting that he actually boarded out Dissenter's Deliverance. That seems like the kind of card that you would just always keep in your deck because, again, oftentimes Marvel doesn't hit the Ulamog, right? And it just cycles at any point in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But sideboarding here is tricky. Like, kind of the easy cut is -4 Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. Then what? Right? Then you're actually, like, either cutting removal or shaving on Marvels or Ulamogs. There's like a lot of different things you can do. It's like you could board out Harness Lightning, but you might just lose to Tireless Tracker.
Yeah, it's probably just a matter of picking which fights you really want to fight.
Yeah.
Because it's just, it doesn't feel like you can really sideboard to win all of them.
Yeah. That's the thing. I've seen people board out Whirler Virtuoso too, where they're like, well, this is just not high enough impact, especially if the other player keeps in some kind of sweeper.
Sure.
Yuya Watanabe kept sideboarded in Radiant Flames in the mirror. So that was like a really interesting thing
we
that he
saw
chose
that.
to
You're
do.
talking about the Pro Tour, right?
Yeah, at the Pro Tour. I was actually kind of
noticing that
surprised.
and being like, what is that doing in the deck still?
And Sweltering Suns, you can even make a better case for it because at least it has cycling. I know Yuya didn't play that in his deck, but you know, if you're on the draw, and Reid, if you're on the draw, like it wouldn't be terrible to at least keep like one copy of that card just to give yourself an out in case, you know, a Whirler Virtuoso sticks and gets out of hand.
Right. Like you said, the cycling aspect of it too, making it a much more easily to convince yourself.
Yeah, definitely. The post-board matches are actually very interesting for Temur. It's just the game ones that are pretty silly. Oh, Ulamog. That's cool. All right.
Tap, tap, tap.
Yeah.
Yeah, last time we had one of these mirrors on, we saw Aetherworks Marvel get stolen and then restolen back. We saw multiple spins.
Yeah. It definitely took a long time. It almost got to the point where Paul Dean could actually hardcast his Ulamog.
Well, theoretically.
Right.
He tried to not be able to, but.
Okay. Branden with an okay hand, just a bunch of the classic 3-mana cards. And an answer for a Marvel.
So we're going to see Branden take the less aggressive stance here, most likely, right?
Well, to some degree, it looks like Reid's hand isn't especially aggressive either. He's got some counter magic, a harness lighting, and some negates. So it might actually be Reid who's playing the control, the role of the control deck here, because you know Branden just has a bunch of 3-mana creatures. He's just going to be jamming those every turn.
Tune with Ether for Reid.
Probably going to be nabbing a forest here.
Just saw Ben Rubin walk by the booth with the match slip in hand, and I'm shocked. There's still 18 minutes left in the round.
Yeah. Maybe he just marveled his opponent real fast.
Could be.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he did anything really fast. But or might have more marveled his opponent.
It takes 32 minutes to marvel somebody turn 4 in 2 games.
Yeah. No, we like to tease Ben. Whoa. Easy there, Reid.
One of the greats, but definitely a methodical player.
Indeed.
Interesting. Wow.
What are you seeing?
Well, just Branden just didn't play a 3-drop there. He just decided to play a round sensor. But you're on the play, and frequently, like, the Marvel decks board out sensor, you know, after sideboard. So
maybe he doesn't know.
Yeah, but it's like you kind of would just. So now what? Like, are you going to play around sensor again? And yeah, I mean, Branden is very, very committed here to playing around sensor.
He really is, because he could have gone Tireless Tracker land.
Right.
Instead, he's going to play Rogue Refiner and get his card right away. Thank you very much. Pass the turn to Reid.
Reid only is on 2 energy. I mean, this did open the window for Reid to just drop a Marvel next turn, but since he can't do anything with it, and the fact that Branden can just untap and cast the Center's Deliverance means he probably won't just go for it there. And Reid actually did board in Sweltering Suns. You see it in his hand right here. And, as I mentioned, you can just cycle it, right?
That's what he's going to do.
Yeah. The thing is, Branden just has like a bunch of those 3-mana cards. Like, you can just get Reid to use that sensor and then maybe set it up so like let's say he just tried to play around sensor, and let's say Reid had the sensor turn 3. Reid sensors the Rogue Refiner. Great. Okay, next turn, player Tireless Tracker. It's pretty unlikely that he has another sensor.
Right. Play a land. Pass a turn. Profit.
Oh,
Aetherworks Marvel from Reid. Passes the turn back to Branden. Tick-tock. It's on 2 energy.
This is going to be a really great turn for Branden. He's going to attack for 3, play Tracker, play land, then Dissenter's Deliverance.
Oh, my. Are you serious?
Yeah.
What a turn. And he gets to nab that.
And he can't get censored
Marvel.
either. And he gets the Marvel, yeah. Unless Reid has a Dispel in hand.
He doesn't. So Reid runs out the Aetherworks Marvel, does not activate it because he can't, and it just simply dies. Branden has to be
and then
thrilled.
he draws the Dispel the turn after.
Oh,
Wow.
of course he did.
And he cycled the Sweltering Suns, and he really would like to have that on the battlefield now. But he has to get rid of that tracker.
Got to do it. Harness Lightning the tracker before the clues get out of hand.
Yeah, also play around some counter magic that Branden might be holding.
Passes the turn back to Branden.
Yeah, Branden looking pretty good here. He doesn't have an answer to another Marvel if Reid does find one, but he can just kind of choose to be aggressive with his threats here. Just try to finish off Reid. He might crack a clue here just to see what he draws first. If he draws something like a negate, he might not want to play a 3-drop. Oh, no, I guess playing Rogue Refiner is just better then because you get to add to the board and still draw a card.
Mm-hmm. And go from Branden. And Reid looks like he says, "Well, I need to start taking care of these at some point."
Right. And
so
Branden
he's going to use a Harness Lightning to take out a Refiner.
Yeah, and Branden has a Dispel, but he doesn't really care about the Rogue Refiner. It's already done its job.
Yeah.
It's drawn him a card. It's gotten him some energy. He's happy.
I'd be happy too if I was in Branden's seat after some of these exchanges.
Yeah. Just getting a ton of value. Reid hasn't really been able to get any sort of card advantage in this game whatsoever.
By the way, Reid just passed a turn back to Branden now, who sacrifices that clue on end step. Draws his card. He's up to 4 energy. What did he find? The Torrential Gearhulk?
That was a Torrential Gearhulk.
Boom.
All right. I imagine Branden's just going to attack. There's no haste creatures here, so. And Reid only has 5 mana, so he can't even play a Gearhulk.
Branden plays Ether Hub. Is he done for the turn?
I think I would be tempted to just run out another threat here. The thing is, Branden doesn't really have a great card to play off of his Gearhulk, right? He has a Dissenter's Deliverance. So I think it might just be better just to run out another threat here just to kind of put pressure on Reid's life total. At the same time, Branden might be concerned about Chandra Flamecaller, where if Branden just like plays out some creatures, Reid plays a Chandra's Flamecaller, Branden doesn't really oh no, Branden has Lumbering Falls in play too.
Okay.
So I think Branden should just play out a Whirl of Virtuoso here. He could maybe opt to just keep the Servant of the Conduit in hand, or he could just run it out. Reid did cycle the Sweltering Suns. It's like, how likely is Reid to have kept in multiple sweepers after sideboard?
Feels unlikely.
All right.
There's a Rogue Refiner off the top of the library there for Reid.
So Branden has the ability to make 3 Thopters here, which is 10 damage, and he has a Lumbering Falls in play. So that is potential lethal.
Branden trying to hand Reid Duke his second loss of the tournament.
And Branden can opt to try to be aggressive here. Branden can just go for Harness Lightning on the Rogue Refiner and see what Reid does. Reid might need to actually protect that Rogue Refiner.
It's kind of holding down the fort here, isn't it? But yeah, Branden's getting aggro. He's doing it. Harness Lightning.
Yeah. All right, is Branden just going all in here? Is he could either make 1 or 3 tokens here. If he makes 1, he still has the ability to top deck Marvel and activate, but he can also just be really aggressive and just make 3 Thopters. And he's going with the aggressive route. These Virtuosos doing a lot of work in this matchup.
Look at these Thopters.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is a heck of a board state here for Branden.
So if Branden activates Lumbering Falls and attacks with everything, that'll put Reid down to 1 life. Meaning, even if Reid finds a sweeper, Branden can finish off Reid with the Lumbering Falls that's in play.
Yeah, Reid looking to be in serious trouble here.
Oh, sorry. But Reid can opt to block the Lumbering Falls with the Rogue Refiner, meaning that if Reid finds a big sweeper, he can stabilize.
Yeah, or Branden can attack with everything but do less than the damage. It'll get him down to 1, so do 7 instead of 10.
Let's see. So Branden does have a Torrential Gearhulk in hand. If he Gearhulks the Harness Lightning, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that is 10 damage. So he might actually want to do that. Because also, a Gearhulk that resolves means that a Chandra Flamecaller or a Sweltering Suns doesn't even do it. So I like main phase Gearhulk, Harness Lightning, Rogue Refiner, attack Reid down to 1. And I can't even think of a card Reid can play here to get him out of this.
By the way, Branden's playing this really well.
Yeah, for sure.
You described a couple of pretty intricate lines, and he's just simply done them, like
Right.
on cue. Right as you start to say it, he's like, hello.
Yeah, I mean, that's not necessarily a good sign. Maybe he's just making a mistake every turn because that's the play that I would have made, but...
I wasn't going to say that. I'll leave that to your stream. You're all business here,
Yeah.
buddy. I know you're playing well. Oh, there's an Aetherworks Marvel, but is it too late anyway?
Yeah, Ulamog just will not do it. Unless Reid, like, quietly discarded a Kozilek's return. That might have been able to.
Did not see that, yeah.
Haze of Pollen.
That's in Reid's range,
Yeah,
right?
but Brandon's got a Dispel in hand,
Oh,
too.
no. Aetherworks Marvel into Haze of Pollen?
Yeah. Yeah, what can this be? An instant speed Sweltering Suns? Like that, even that's not good enough. Yeah, Branden just kind of going through the mode, just thinking like, what can Reid possibly have here? And I really don't. I mean, to be fair, there is a Marvel in the battlefield. Reid can just have something crazy that we just
true.
Totally forgot about.
We're going to find out shortly, aren't we? Here we go. Let's see what he hits. Ulamog just leaves him dead.
I can't think of a card.
I don't think there is one. Confiscation Coup? That doesn't do anything now.
Yeah.
And that does it. Branden Nadeau wins 2-1 over Reid Duke here in round number 8 for Montreal. And improves to 7-1. Great stuff from Branden. Reid hanging in there. He's 6-2. Not the best day for him, but
still alive.
Went out.
Yeah.
What could go wrong? Looks like we've got another match that we get to pop in on as well.
Yeah, Branden just got so far ahead in cards in that game. Just every single card was a 2-for-1, and Reid just didn't find his glimmers in time, or his own trackers, or his own Rogue Refiners.
What if Reid just like flipped the table?
I feel like of all the players on the Pro Tour, he is one of the least likely people.
I know. So what if he did? What if we were watching and he just like grabbed the bottom and just sent it into the camera?
This is the worst.
It is hard to imagine.
Yeah,
if you've ever had
totally
a chance
shocked.
to talk to Reid, I know you have, but you know,
Right.
to the viewers at home,
that is just not in his range whatsoever.
He is a sweet guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe he's just saving it up.
Right.
It's a theory.
Just
It's a working theory.
one day he's like, I'm definitely quitting Magic. So today is the day that I'm going to flip the table.
Okay. Paul Dean versus Payne Dunn. Now, we may still be getting our life totals updated, though, so we'll wait a second to get confirmation on if it's actually 2020 or if they're still being updated. But we can take a look at the board state. We're here a little early. What do we got? A couple of clues, 5 energy, tireless tracker, rogue refiner.
So yeah, Paul is definitely ahead on board. He's got a couple of coups, some energy, and he's got the threats on the board. And if you notice, Payne cast a Dispossessed, naming Aetherworks Marvel, right? So Paul doesn't have Marvels left in his deck, but he still looks pretty firmly ahead here. And Payne drew the second copy of Dispossess, which basically has no targets. The only card he can name after that is likely Torrential Gearhulk, which is probably a one of if Paul has it in his deck. But and that's the thing that we kind of touched on earlier. The Marvel deck, very resilient to the hate. You can just win with Tireless Tracker, Rogue Refiner, Whirler Virtuoso, mid-range. You don't need the Marvels to win. And Payne only on 2 energy right now, too.
He may be feeling the pain in a minute here. There's a Tireless Tracker and Rogue Refiner hitting the red zone from Paul's side of the battlefield.
Yeah, and the Tracker's currently a 4-3, so Payne can't really get rid of the Tireless Tracker by blocking here, as Paul can crack the last clue that he has in play to make it into a 5-4. But that would leave Paul on just 1 mana. So if Payne wants to kind of force through a threat, maybe a Marvel or something like that, he could just block the Tireless Tracker just to force Paul to tap 2 mana.
Oh, he's thinking about it. He almost did that.
And he's got a Demon of Dark Schemes in hand. So if he draws a land, he can just play the Demon and just it will just eat the Rogue Refiner for free. So he could consider that. It does allow him to play around a potential Censor that Paul might be holding. But because Payne doesn't have the 6th land, it's just like a little too risky to take that line.
Ooh, this is awkward.
What happened?
That land is actually the top card of Paul's library.
Oh.
But it just got accidentally knocked over when he went to put his Rogue Refiner in the graveyard.
So what happens here? Do you just put it back on top?
Yeah, I think you shuffle, but because I don't think he's allowed to know. But also it depends on if there was cards put on the bottom and that kind of thing.
Do you shuffle, or does Payne get the decision to? Like this,
I don't know.
Yeah. Can Payne choose to keep that on top or shuffle, or?
I think Payne should decide if he wants to just keep the card.
Yeah. Oh, it's just a shuffle, I guess. Better for Paul, but of course Paul didn't know what was on top of his library. It was just. That's the interesting thing about these Marvel mirrors. Sometimes it is about fighting over that Marvel. Sometimes you just get the tracker advantage, or in the match previous to this, World of Virtuoso advantage, right? Just the Thopters ended the game.
Yeah, the Virtuoso, really does play an important role as an outlet for the energy that you can build up with the deck if you don't have
because
the Marvel.
These Marvel decks are boarding in up to 4 negates, right? Maybe 1 or 2 dispels. So often they're going to have the counter for the Marvel. So you kind of want another energy sink, and World of Virtuoso allows you to do that because Virtuoso is never getting countered.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, Payne's got his own copy of Tireless Tracker plus a land to follow it up with.
Tracker Wars.
I kind of favor the one that had the tracker down first here, don't I?
Yeah. And Paul does have Dispel Protection and now Negate Protection as well. So if Payne had something like a Grasp of Darkness, for example, he would have the protection. Oh, and a Hardness Lightning for Payne's Tireless Tracker.
Yeah, that's a well-timed draw there from Paul Dean.
The timing could be interesting here on the Harness Lightning. Payne is likely going to crack the clue end of turn, right? Which means that Payne won't have access to negate. And then that's when Paul could fire off the Harnessed Lightning. But then Payne could be aware of that and choose not to crack a clue. And
at the cost of some mana efficiency.
Right. And then if that's the case, then Paul probably has to fire off the Harnessed Lightning on Payne's upkeep because you don't want Payne to find a land.
Right. I'm curious to see how Payne manages this.
I would guess that he's kind of behind here. He probably just wants to crack the clue.
Just has to go for it because of mana issues.
Right. Although I would keep up a blue mana, but
I would too. Payne, you're killing me, buddy. All right, take 2.
Unless he has like Fatal Push in his deck or something.
Yeah.
I guess that would be a consideration.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. But he ends up just having to untap and draw with no Tireless Tracker anymore. That Harnessed Lightning from Paul Dean took it down.
Right. So he does have a Demon of Dark Schemes, which doesn't do a whole lot on this board. He might just run it out anyways. He doesn't really have any other plays. And I like it. He could have attuned and played a Demon, but you want to play the land first. You could play around Censor. Like if you can afford to play around it, you just run out the Demon first, then you cast the Attune. Just kidding. Maybe he doesn't run out the Demon.
Curious now.
Yeah. Okay. Opting just to go for the puzzle knot here.
Not a high impact play.
No. And again, I have, like, that's the thing. I'm not even sure. Like, I have seen people keep in puzzle knots, and I've seen people board out puzzle knots. And I'm not sure what's correct, because when you board out the puzzle knots, you slow down a lot, and oftentimes your Marvel, you just won't even have energy a lot of the time to activate the Marvel.
It's true, because remember, not only is the puzzle knot get that first activation going, but it's also a very fine backup hit in case you don't hit one of your big payoffs.
But if your game plan is to kind of play more of a mid-range deck with tireless trackers and stuff after sideboard.
Yeah, you run out of room pretty quick, don't you?
Right. This tracker doing a lot of work for Paul. It doesn't look like he has a land. Just 7 spells in hand.
Oof.
It's a lot of action.
I don't envy missing land drops, but I certainly do envy 7 spells in hand.
Right. Oh wow! If you look at Paul's hand too, he actually boarded in Radiant Flames. So this is
wow. Some pretty high level sideboarding happening here.
It's always that backup plan.
Yeah. Tracker go, and Payne has to be like, seriously? You don't have a land drop to hit here?
Okay, okay. So Payne currently has 7 mana on the okay, now 8. He drew Servant of the Conduit, so he is 1 land away from just hard casting that Ulamog.
Well, that's a way to take care of 2 tireless trackers, isn't it?
But Payne could also be tempted to run out Demon of Dark Schemes here. Paul did not play a land, so he cannot save one of those tireless trackers that's on the battlefield. Then he can follow that up with a Servant of the Conduit, and that puts him in a pretty decent spot.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was a Chandra instead of a Radiant Flames. I see a red card. It might have been Chandra, actually.
Okay. Well, he's going to run out the Servant. He does have that demon in hand, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Maybe he's just waiting to get to 9 mana? Yeah.
Yeah, he's got the black mana he needs as well. Just double checking that.
Right.
He does, he does.
In a land for Paul. That's big.
That is potentially explosive to start hitting lands at this point, generating 2 clues and growing out his board.
Yeah, Paul has to be like very, very scared though of Payne just being able to go land Ulamog here. So it might have been possible that he didn't want to play that tireless tracker and instead opt to just cast Glimmer of Genius instead in that previous turn to try to either, again, if Payne, like, you have to think about like the ways you can lose in this spot, and one of the ways is Payne goes land Servant into land Ulamog, and if that's the case, you want to give yourself the ability to cast Glimmer, find a Harness Lining, or just be able to smooth out your draws a little better. Especially because Paul didn't have a land to follow up that tracker. Ooh. So one thing Paul might actually consider doing here is steal Servant of the Conduit to prevent.
Oh, that's interesting.
But
because then he just can't get Ulamog the next turn.
Right, but at the same time, Paul is at 7 mana, right? So even if Payne just hard casts Ulamog next turn, Paul will. Because Payne is likely to get the trackers, but even if Payne gets 2 of the lands, Paul can just untap, because Payne's going to be tapped out. Paul can untap and just cast Confiscation Coup and steal Ulamog.
And he has enough?
He's got 7 energy right now.
Goodness sakes.
It would go up to 11.
Setting that up would be nice.
Right.
It's really hard to convince yourself to say, go ahead, cast Ulamog, but it might actually be a thing.
Right.
It looks like the Servant is chump blocking. Is that what we're seeing here?
That's what it looks like. Huh.
And it's lethal.
Oh, okay. It was. I really wonder why that demon just didn't enter the battlefield earlier.
I do too. This is not an efficient use of mana here, is it?
This is too much.
And now the second tireless tracker has a counter on it.
Right, so the demon won't even get the tracker, and Payne can't even cast the Ulamog.
Huh. This is 8 lands on the battlefield for Payne Dunn now. He had 8 last turn, but he also had a Servant. Now he's just on the lands.
Right. Payne.
He could be 2 to 3 turns away.
Playing this a bit conservatively.
Yeah, he really is. He's going to play Rogue Refiner.
All right. He's Got a lot of energy. Looks like he drew a Servant of the Conduit. And at this point, while you have the mana, you could just fire off a Dispossess. Just see what's in Paul's hand. And at the same time, maybe just get, you know.
Maybe nab something.
Yeah, like maybe Paul has a Torrential Gearhulk in hand or something.
Yeah.
The second one is basically dead after you cast the first one.
Paul sacrifices the clue, gets a couple of counters on his Tireless Trackers, draws a card, and takes his untap. Let's see what he's got for this turn.
So yeah, Payne has access to just one piece of counter magic here. What Paul can do, I think if he had a Chandra in hand with the Dispel, he can opt to just play Chandra, minus it for 2, and then just attack for lethal. Because I believe he's got a land there too, so he's got negate back up as well. Yeah, he's got an 8 power tracker and a 5 power tracker.
Yeah.
I guess Payne could maybe have like Grasp of Darkness, Dispel or something. But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Paul's going for it.
Here comes Chandra Flamecaller.
That should be the game.
She's knocking at the door. Payne done. Oh, he gives a thumbs up. That's not good news. Paul Dean -2.
That should be the game.
And that is it. He even shows him the demon there, but Paul Dean ends up winning this match 2-1, defeating Payne Dunn. And we're going to be back with more Magic after these messages.